Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and you are watching Poland Daily Culture. Since the times of epidemic recalls in us many metaphysical questions, we will talk today about the greatest Polish philosophers of 20th century. With me in the studio is Maria Kądzielska, former student of Professor Władysław Tatarkiewicz and a Polish philosopher. Thank you for having the courage to be with us.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to your program.
Fever, sore throat, problem with breathing?
Fortunately, nothing like this. But it's worthwhile remembering that last plague in Europe resulted in a very outstanding literary output, which is Decameron by Boccaccio. So we should rather think in these categories that we can bring something fruitful to this world thanks to epidemic. But still, it is a cause to think in metaphysical in the times of plague.
Here we go again, and we are in the middle of series about the greatest Polish philosophers of 20th century. And since we talked already about Władysław Tatarkiewicz and Henryk Elsenberg, it's time for another giant right now, and his name is Władysław Tatarkiewicz. And he was not only a philosopher, but also a great teacher and a savior of many generations of students who just a night before the exam are taking his book and trying to learn by heart anything from the history of philosophy. And his books, his volumes of history of philosophy saved many, and not only in Poland, but also all across the world, because the book was translated to English. It's probably one of the greatest textbooks in philosophy. But let's right now talk a little bit deeper who Władysław Tatarkiewicz was.
Well, Władysław Tatarkiewicz was an outstanding person. He was a historian of philosophy. He was also analyzing some concepts in aesthetics. His book dedicated to analysis of happiness is worldwide known. The most surprising thing is that he wrote this during World War II. So during the time that is not very good to write about good. But yes, coming back to his history of philosophy, in the world, in the Western world, is well-known Russell's History of Western Philosophy, which is an outstanding book, but which is very subjective, let's say. Tatarkiewicz's books is deemed to be absolutely the best history of Western philosophy ever written, and it's used extensively. It's very clear, very thorough. It's a really marvelous book, and in this way he educated many generations of Polish philosophers, or simply Polish intelligentsia, but not also in Poland. As we say, it was translated into English, into other languages. So he influenced many generations of Polish philosophers. It was absolutely a must to study all three volumes of his history of philosophy. So first 3 years of master studies in philosophy was concentrated subsequently on those 3 volumes. Tatarkiewicz is often told to be a member of this Lwów-Warsaw school, which is not very precise. He studied, among others, because he studied many fields, like he studied psychology, philosophy, anthropology, history of art. He studied law, he studied zoology, so he was very well prepared to be a philosopher. And he studied in Marburg, so it was no Kantian school in philosophy. So this is definitely not analytical school. I mean, it's not this anti-metaphysical.
So there is the
wing.
grain of Plato again in thoughts of Tatarkiewicz, and he tried to answer about something beyond. So not only he was not a realist in the mean that nothing more that would surround us, but he tried to answer the metaphysical questions as well.
Yes, definitely, but
even though he focused more on
aesthetics. So he wrote also history of aesthetics, but also analyzed some concepts used in aesthetics. Along with Tadeusz Kotarbiński, he is one of the most important figures in Polish philosophy in terms of teaching other generations, because Kotarbiński, he was in this Lwów-Warsaw school, but he developed his own system, but he brought logical culture to the Polish philosophical environment. And many generations learned from his elements, which are elements of logic.
Of Tadeusz Kotarbiński right now. We're talking about another Polish philosopher,
yes.
Tadeusz Kotarbiński, who is known as a member of as a Warsaw-Lviv logic school, and of course was friends with Władysław Tatarkiewicz, because it's a small environment, everyone know each other, that's why later everyone can eat each other as well. But they both knew each other, they both tried to answer metaphysical questions, didn't they?
The most important is that they educated many generations of Polish philosophers. Kotarbiński developed his own metaphysical, or let's say ontological system. It was anti-metaphysical in terms of ontology, so I think he was not very popular at the time of a communist regime, because he was not a communist, but I'm afraid that right now he is a little bit forgotten because he was an atheist. But on the other hand, this system is very important because it's an attempt to create the system that is purely naturalistic, and in my opinion it's very well structured, but it has some deficiencies that are well worth studying. But still, it's a great system. It's called reism, from Greek word re, which means thing, an object. And of course it produces immediately some questions. What is it to be a thing? What is a thing? And we may start answering this question, that this is something that exists in times and space, that reacts in times and space, and can be localized. And if we think of things in this way, then we come to beings like the objects of mathematics, which cannot be localized in times and space, which don't react, but in the opinion of many mathematicians, they do exist. Because again, we come to the questions why mathematics can describe the natural world, the physical world. This is the door again for Plato's ideas, coming back to philosophy. Still, Kotarbiński is very important. He was also a historian. He wrote some essays on history, especially on British philosophy, on John Stuart Mill. He was writing in a very clear way, similarly to Russell. I think he can be easily compared with Russell in terms of clarity of thoughts and clarity of words. And definitely those two figures must not be forgotten. They still exercise their influence upon generations of philosophers. And if they will not, there will be no philosophy.
So when we're talking about reism, is virus COVID-19 a thing or not?
But definitely, it is a thing.
It is a thing. So if you're eager, you can take virus COVID right now, which we all struggle with, and analyze him through all types of different philosophies in 20th century. So through eyes of Tatarkiewicz, through eyes of Kotarbiński, and so let's try to answer where he is. Where is an object or not an object, a fact, a matter, and what are his existential frames, I would say. But that's why I would say it's a kind of pleasure and a game, philosophical games. And we encourage all of you to dig into philosophical books, especially right now, and try to answer some questions. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.